Okay, guys, so let's have a quick look, a recap on what we have covered so far in the last 2 lessons that, can anyone remember what we've done in the last 2 lessons or so? I also just gave you a little bit of a clue now in my intro. What do you remember from the last 2 lessons or Monday's lesson? Anyone want to tell me? Raise their hand and tell us quickly. Income and expenditure, good. Thank you, Chloe. Fixed variables, okay. Also, our fixed costs and variable costs, fixed expenses, and all of that. Okay, so we looked at income, got our expenditure. Okay. Cost price and selling price, great. I see some more comments. Variables. Okay, we learned about income and expenses, income costs, profit and loss. Yes, that's another one. Good. Nice, guys. Fixed amounts. Yes, Bonte, thank you. Tariffs, cell phone, prepaid, and contract tariffs. Good. Okay, so tariffs was a little while back, but still part of this chapter. Nice. You dug deep for that answer. Well done. Okay, guys. So just for the newbies, this is what we kind of covered. So just a reminder, our selling price is the amount we sell something for. And if we are selling something, that means we are making an income. Okay. And if we are making more of an income than expenditures, or our income is more than our expenses, we make a profit. So those 3 work really well hand in hand. And then cost price is the cost to manufacture or make the product that you're selling, or to provide the service. So whatever it costs you to make your product or provide the service, okay, as well as your expenses come into play with your cost price, because we can get fixed expenses, variable expenses. Those 2 together can determine if you make a profit or loss. Okay, so if your expenses are more than your income, you end up making a loss. Okay, so that's just a quick run through on what we've done. So all of these things come into play for our lesson today, and we'll be looking at break-even analysis. So who can tell me what is break-even? What does it mean to break even? When you do not have a loss, yeah, I see your joke there. When you do not have a loss or income, when costs and income are equal, no profit, no loss. Perfect. All of those are great definitions. So that's when our total incomes, or total income, equals our total expenses. Okay, it's also a point where you are making no profit and no loss is made. So you're not in a great space, but you're not in a bad space, because you're not making a loss. You're not losing out on any money, but you're not making any money. Let's see what else. And profits are equal to the costs. Okay. So Tamia, with that, just be careful when saying profit, because if you're saying profit, it means that you've passed the break-even point. You are actually making money. Okay, so it's when your income equals your costs. Okay, not your profit. But you can, if you want to use the word profit, then you must say it's the point where no profit and no loss is made. Okay, so you kind of like mixed up two definitions there. At least Ayabonga's laughing at your joke. Yeah, someone has to, eh?
Yeah, no.
It's a tough crowd out there.
I had to break the ice because wow, tough crowd.
Okay, and there's one kind of definition that I haven't seen. What happens if we are looking at a graph? How would I determine a break-even point there? Where is that exact point? Okay. Not quite, Chloe.
There is a question in the chat where Velucia asks, which business income equals the businesses are able to optimize their profits?
I think that's a definition.
Oh, okay.
When business
Fente. Wow.
Okay. Nice, great answer. Okay, so that is also a definition that you could use for break-even point. It's very possible that at the end of the year on your prelim, you could be asked, what does break-even mean, or what is the break-even point? Okay, so you can say either one of these that we've written down, or you could say it is the point of intersection
Good job, Luto.
on the graph, and the graph will obviously be your income and expenses graph or income and expenditure graph. Okay, so okay, good answers. I see that some of you did get it. Let's look at an example of a graph. Okay, so now there are two lines. We are quite used to just having one line on a graph, okay? But with a break-even graph, we always have an income line and an expenses line, because that's what we compare. And we need to see where our incomes match up with our expenses, and that's where we can see it on this graph. So in green here, that is our income line. I can tell that that's an income line straight away, because the income line graph is always going to start at 0 and 0. It always starts there, because if you don't sell anything, you don't make any money. So your income always starts at 0. However, when it comes to expenses, it's never going to start at 0, because you're always going to have some expenses before you even start selling your product or providing your service. So there's always going to be a fixed expense to start up. So let's say you're starting up a shop. Before you even start selling products in your shop, you're going to have to pay for rent, for example, purchasing the stuff that you're going to now sell, or the cost to make those things. That is still, you still need to pay that before you even start selling. Okay, so your expenses line always starts at a certain amount, never at 0, but your income line always starts at 0 and 0. And then we can see on this graph that we've got our break-even point. That's where our two lines intersect. Okay, so this is the point where you're not making any profit or a loss. So if you are looking at any point over here on the graph, so if we were selling, let's say, because this would be 15. Let's say I was selling 15 pairs of shoes, okay? I would only be making about, it's going up in, let's just check. going up in 5s. So it would be about 15 Rand. Okay, but that is below, that is before the break-even point. So it means you are making a loss. But if you're selling shoes from 30 upwards, it means you are making a profit. So when you're on this side of the break-even point, it means you're making a loss. But if you go in the other way, you are making a profit. Okay, so that's just a quick run through on how you would read. Thanks, Ayabunga. This graph. Okay, so I don't know if you guys want to maybe take a quick screenshot of it, just so you can have it. Let me just erase the stuff for you. But the most important thing to take away from a break-even graph is that there's 2 lines, one's for your income, one's for your expenses, and they always are going to intersect. They have to intersect, and that will be the break-even point. Okay. Everyone happy? How are we feeling about break-even so far? We getting it a little bit? You ready to try and exercise? Let me know in the chat. Ready? Thumbs up. Yes.
We got a thumbs up from Asipe and Bontle. Bontle's excited. She's like, yay.
And
Chantal is good.
Awesome. Okay, so let's have a look at our first exercise. So now break even can be asked in one of 2 ways. They could give you the graph and then ask you questions based on the graph, or they could give you a whole lot of information. You have to do a few calculations and then draw a graph. So there are 2 ways. This is obviously the nicer way because you don't have to draw the graph. But yeah, so let's take a moment to quickly look at the graph at hand. It says the graph showing the income and expenses of Tembi's toy making business is given below. Okay. So again, welcome to take a screenshot of this. We have our heading, our axes have been labeled. We have our amounts on the y-axis, the number of toys on our x-axis, and we've got our 2 lines. And as you can see, like I said, our income line is starting at 0 and 0, which it always will, because if you don't sell anything, you don't make an income. And our expenses line, again, does not start at 0 because you sometimes, or not sometimes, always have expenses before you start selling or providing a service. Okay, and as you can see, those lines intersect, so we know we are dealing with a break-even question. Okay, so let's try some of these questions now. I'm going to ask you to do question 1 and 2 for me, but keep your answers to yourselves for now, and I'll let you know when you can put them in on the chat. Okay, if you have your answers, you can let me know. Okay, so for number 1, we're all getting 500. Let's see, they're still coming in, still coming in. Okay, all 500, great. Well, Kamo, I see you've given a ratio there. Is that, oh, I see what you did, okay. Okay, so you guys can read the graph beautifully. We look at 20 toys, so we follow the line, and we're looking at income. So we follow the 20 line until the income graph, okay, and that leads us to 500 for those of you that did not see. So the answer is 500. Okay, perfect. Then question 2, will Tembi make a profit or a loss if she sells 20 toys? What did we say? Good, I'm seeing some answers. Good, good, good. Okay, so remember our break-even point is over here and 20 toys is on that side. So that means a profit is being made. Great. Okay, let's move on. How many toys must Tembi make and sell to break even? So what is the break even point? How many toys? You can let me know in the chat as soon as you get it. Okay, good. Nice, Chloe. I see. Okay, good. Asipe, that's a very valid answer, which I'm glad we get to look at. Okay, so most of you said 9, which is probably the most accurate because we're only looking at the number of toys. So we just have to worry about, sorry, let me get my pencil, where the break-even points intersect here. But as you can see, it's not exactly clear. So there will normally be a little bit of leeway. So they probably would have accepted 8 or 9. But I think the safest answer here is 9. But sometimes it can be a little bit less obvious. And then there will be a bit of a range. So don't let that discourage you. Just try to get to as close to the point as possible. All right. Yeah, so sometimes they're not always nice and they don't give it to you on a nice solid number then you have to kind of give a little bit of an estimate. But good, most of you did get that right. So well done. All right, then number 4. How much profit will Tembi make if she sells 40 toys? Now remember profit, we spoke about this on Monday. There are 2 formulas that we can use for profits, and those formulas we need to know off by heart. Okay, and it all depends on what we're looking at. The one formula is selling price minus cost price, or your income minus your expenses. And if we look at the scenario at hand, we are dealing with incomes and expenses. So we'll be using income minus expenses. So I'm just going to zoom into the graph so you can see clearly what is the profit that she'll make if she sells 40 toys. What profit will she make if she sells 40 toys? Keep your answers off the chat for now. I want everyone to quickly try this. What profit will she make if she sells 40 toys? Okay, if you have an answer, you can put it in the chat.
You guys type so much faster than me. Gosh.
Okay, so I can see some different answers here, and it is because it's hard to see this line.
Apu is providing a calculation. I love it.
Okay, so there's a debate between 350 and 400. So let's have a look who is correct or not. So firstly, we need to look at the costs at 40 toys. So that is on this line here. Okay, so we need to look at the income amount, and that's nice and easy to read. Income is sitting at 1,000 Rand. So remember, profits, it's 1,000 Rand minus now our expenses. Now I'm going to try and draw a relatively straight line here, but you guys in a test will use your ruler. And we see that it does fall in between 600 and 700. So our formula is going to be 1,000 minus 650, giving us a profit of 350 Rand. So yay to think about 50% of you. The rest of you totally understand I had to look twice. Okay, good stuff. Awesome. I'm glad that you guys were able to read and apply those points into the formula. Okay, last question for this exercise. And I love it because it's testing some rounding as well. I'm going to ask you to try question 5 for me quickly. Okay, if you have the answer, you can share it in the chat.
Time to see those great answers.
Kamachelo, just check, and Ayabonga, just check the last part of the question. And Siwa. I'm yet to see the correct rounding. There we have it. Okay. So we all know how to round to 2 decimal places really well. So that's great. However, the question said round your answer to 1 decimal place. So I should only be seeing one number after the comma. Okay, but let's have a look at this. So also a very common question when it comes to income and expenditure is working out the percentage profit or percentage loss. So if you had to use this formula and if you got a negative answer, that means you are making a loss. If you get a positive answer, it means that you're making a profit. Okay, so percentage profit is quite a common question. They could also give you the formula like this, income minus expenses over expenses times 100. So that might be one that you're familiar with. But remember, your income minus expenses is the same thing as saying profit. Or you might have seen a formula, new minus old over old times 100. Same thing applies. Okay, so Just so you know, they all mean the same thing. They all give you the same answer. Okay, then see a question in the chat. Okay, thanks, Lindo. Okay, so we substitute in. We know that our profit was 350. We worked that out in the previous question, and our expenses is 650. You will get a mark for showing that you've substituted into the formula, so please remember to always do that. And you get an answer of, normally you would say 53.85%, because percentages are always 2 decimal places unless stated otherwise or asked for another thing in the question. And remember to always include your percentage sign in your answer. However, in this question, it told you to round to 1 decimal place, so you'll take it one step further and say 53.9%. But when they ask you to round specifically, you need to show your actual answer first and then your rounded answer. They want to see how you've rounded. So if you got the wrong answer completely, but then you've rounded that wrong answer correctly, you can still get a rounding mark. So always show your actual answer first, then your rounded answer. Okay, because then if you do mess up, but your rounding was good, you still at least get 1 mark for rounding correctly. Okay, everyone happy with that? How are we feeling so far with break even? It looks like you're quite confident. We ready for another exercise? Give me some emojis in the chat. Let's liven this up a little bit. If you do have questions, or you can also let me know in the chat or raise your hand. Come hello. All the love. Thanks, Chantal and Bontle. Yay. Asipe, I'm so glad.
Good to see we didn't break them.
Yeah. Took me a while to clearly been a long week that we're laughing at that, hey?
Yeah, no.
Okay, guys. So like I said, 2 ways we can ask break even in a test. Show you a graph, ask you to answer questions based on the graph. Now we're going to look at another way. So we're going to try another exercise. Shelly manufactures or makes cute bags in her spare time. She decides to sell her product at the Willow Dam Sunday market. To rent a stall or a little space at the market costs 80 Rand per day. The production cost of the bag is 75 Rand. Shelly wants to sell her bags at 100 Rand each. Okay. So the important things we need to look at here before we even worry about the questions is we have 80 Rand. We have production costs of 75 Rand and sell them for 100 Rand. Okay, so we know that the 100 Rand must be what? Is it selling price, cost price? What would the 100 Rand be? Anyone want to tell me in the chat? Anyone want to unmute to tell me? Up here, fast fingers. It is our selling price. Good, good, good. Now I see them coming through. Okay. So it's always important to just kind of figure this out before you deal with the questions. Then 75 Rand. What's the 75 Rand going to be? Remember, production costs is the same as manufacturing costs, the cost to make something. So that is our nice cost price. And then what about this 80 Rand over here? What do we call that? So this is the cost that I was telling you about when it comes to the expenses line. This is the reason the expenses line does not start at 0, because we have things, won't there, a fixed cost or fixed expense. Okay. Okay, so before Shelley even tries to sell her handbags or her cute bags, she has to pay 80 Rand. Okay. So now that we have dissected this information, I think we're ready to tackle the questions. And now that we've done it, it's going to make the questions a lot easier. Number one, what is Shelley's selling price for one bag? Let me know in the chat. Good. It's right there. 100 Rand. Question two, what is the cost price? Nice. Seeing all these beautiful answers coming through.
I think
Cost
they're
price.
really enjoying this topic.
75 Rand. How easy was it to actually answer these questions now that we actually dealt with the situation already? We know what's happening instead of spending all this time rereading after every question. Okay, good. 75 Rand. Oh, look at that. So we really actually know question three's answer. Let me see it. It's in the chat. Identify Shelley's fixed costs. Great. 80 Rand. Look at them go. You guys were ready. You had it typed out before I was even finished speaking. Okay. So now let's keep the scenario in our mind. In order for our graphs to take place, we need to do a few calculations with these numbers. So I've set up some tables. The first table is the expenses table. So in question 4, I've said complete the following tables for income and expenses for Shelley's business. So let's look at the expenses table first. Okay, we've got some missing values, A and B. Now, if we think about expenses as a whole, how do we work out her expenses based on number of bags? Could we come up with a general formula for the expenses? We can. Does anyone want to give it a try? What formula could we use to work out how much it would cost to make any number of bags?
The silence is so loud.
Okay, so when we're looking at our expenses, let's think about the very first thing that Shelley is going to pay. Before she even has her stall, she pays what? A fixed cost of 80 Rand. So I'm going to say cost is equal to 80 Rand, because that doesn't matter if she has 10 bags with her, 5 bags with her, she has to pay that 80 Rand. Plus, it costs her, what did we say? 75 Rand to make one bag. So it's going to be 80 Rand plus 75 Rand per bag. So I'm going to say 75 times by number of bags. Okay, so that's just a general formula to help us work out the expenses. I mean, you don't always have to set that up. If you knew how to work out A in your head, then that's fine. But just to explain the scenario to everyone. Okay, so keeping that formula in mind, please can I ask you guys to work out A and B for me.
I hope everyone is working hard, substituting into the formula. Noah, what happened to those fast fingers, guys? Are you guys maybe shy to drop the answer?
I think it's because I haven't told them they're allowed to yet.
Mm.
Ibongo is waiting.
Yeah.
Nice, April. Good, nicely, Claire. Okay, see answers for A and then working out for sort of for B. Okay. Nice answers for A. You guys can also tell me what you got for B. I'm seeing some B answers and they are perfect. Okay. So A, guys, substituting into the formula, it would be 80 plus 75 times by 0 because we had 0 bags. So you'll still be paying 80 Rand. Okay, because the bracket would give you 0. So we left with 80, which all of you did get. Well done. Okay, then looking at B, just got to be careful here. I see some signs have been changed. We've got our 80 Rand up front plus the 75 Rand per bag. She has made 5 bags at this point. So it's going to give us a total of 455. Okay, so just make sure that we are times in the bracket. Okay, for the most part, looks like you guys all understood that. And I hope that you understood how I made that formula, because sometimes you might have to do that by yourself. Okay, but loving the answers and the jokes from Kia. I don't know if you guys, want to maybe laugh, give some attention. I don't know.
I'm on a roll today.
You're trying, and you guys are very, very quiet. Okay, then let's look at the incomes table. We've got missing values again. I'm going to ask you guys to take the lead here and work out C and D for me, please. And again, guys, you're more than welcome to take screenshots throughout the lesson so you have the work. If I'm moving too quickly and you can't write as fast as I'm scrolling. Hey, if you're ready to share your answers for C, let me have them. Nice, Lawande. Nice, Asipe.
Answers are coming in slow. Okay, now they're picking up again.
Nice. Okay, guys, so C is indeed 0. And just in general, like we can figure that out straight away, because remember our income line in a graph always starts at 0 and 0. Okay, so when in doubt, just remember that when it comes to income. However, a way that you could work it out, our general formula for income is very easy because it's 100 Rand for every bag she sells. So you could literally just say 100 Rand times number of bags if they ask you for a formula. Okay, but you could just work it out. 100 Rand, if she has no bags, it's times by 0. Anything times by 0 is 0. When you don't sell anything, you don't make anything. Hence, the income line always starts at 0 and 0. Okay, let's see the answers for D. Yep, you guys had them ready.
Already typed out, just waiting to press send.
They're like, gosh, stop talking money. You can just let us type the answers. Okay, wow, I'm so impressed because you had to do some manipulation here of the formula. Well done, and you're going to get it right. Okay, so let's quickly go through it for those of you that may not have gotten there yet. Okay, so for the income graph, we are used to working out the cost the whole time, either the costs, the expense, or the income. But now all of a sudden they've asked us to work out D, which is actually the number of bags. So we're working out number of bags, not the cost. So we look at our general formula. Okay, which is 100 Rand times number of bags. Income is equal to 100 Rand times number of bags. Oh, wrong thing. Okay, so income. So in this instance, we already have our income. Our income is 500 Rand. So looking at this exact formula, I'm going to substitute 500 Rand into where income is in the formula. Okay, 100 Rand. And instead of writing out number of bags, I'm just going to say times N just for now. Okay. And now we want N, number of bags, to be by itself because that's what we're working out. We always do the opposite of what's happening, the opposite operation. So because it's 8 times, we're going to divide by 100. So we can get rid of the 100 here. But what we do to the one side of the equal sign, we must do to the other. So 500 divided by 100 is equal to 5. So it is 5 bags. Okay, but for the most part, you all got that right. So well done, everyone. Okay, so now's the big one. Use the above tables to draw the line graphs for expenses and income on the same set of axes. So sometimes the examiner can be really nice and give you the graph set up straight away, but sometimes you might have to draw one from scratch. So just key things to take note of. If you have to draw from scratch, remember heading because you always get a mark for that. Remember to label your axes. Okay, sometimes you get 1 mark per or 1 mark for each. Okay, and then just remember your increments need to be equal. So if you go from 0 to 500, you need to go up in 500s the whole way up your axis. Okay, so just a few key things, but you don't need to worry about that in this question because everything's been given to you. So you, of course, need your tables to do this graph. So looking at, the first table, we said A was 80. I was going to fill it in here quickly. 80 and B was 455. Okay, so let's look at the expenses graph first. As you can see, our 2 points, or our first point, is 0 and 180. So I'm going to do expenses in red because, yeah, expenses are ugly. So to do our first point, we look at number of bags, which is at the bottom, and where 0 is, so it's over here, and the amount at 0, which is 80. So with this kind of question, you'll need to figure out in what increments they're going up in, Okay, so as we can see, the first point there is 500, but there's 4 lines in between. So they must be going up in what? Hundreds. Good. Thank you. So for our first point, we said it was 80. So 80 is going to be, let's zoom in even more. So our first line is 100. So 80 will be just below that first line. Okay. Then when we go back to the table, our next point is 1 and 155. So we look for one bag. Okay, so this was a mean graph. We know that this point is going to be 2,5, so 1 must roughly be here, and 155 will be in between these two lines. Okay, is everyone following with the graph so far? Okay, then, oh, sorry, the next one is 5 and 455. 5 and 455, so we look for 5 over here, and 455 will be so we know 400 is just under 500, so 455 will be, oh, sorry, just past the middle. Okay, next one is 10 bags at 830. 10 bags and 830. So we look for 10 bags at the bottom. 830 will be 1, 2, 3 lines above the 500 because we're going up in hundreds and just over. Hey. Please let me know if it's not making sense how I'm plotting this graph. But from the looks of things, looks like you guys are following. 20 bags and 1,580. So 20 is on a nice line. Will be over there. Okay, and in a test, please use a ruler. You'll join these lines and you'll get a straight line, and don't forget to label. Okay, then just purely because of time, I'm just going through it quite quickly instead of you guys doing it by yourselves from the get-go. Okay, the income line we know straight away starts at 0 and 0. So let's go straight there. 0 and 0. And just a shortcut. I'm going to go straight to the last point because I know it's going to be a straight line. It's 20 and 2,000. Okay, I'm going straight to the last one because I know it's a straight line. 20 and 2,000. Which is over here. Okay, and I've labeled my lines. Okay, everyone happy with drawing a break-even analysis graph? I know you guys didn't actually draw, but does it make sense on how to plot those points? Let me know in the chat. Thumbs up, happy faces. Could you do this by yourselves? Nice, good. Okay, awesome. Nice, guys. And as you can see, we are dealing with the break-even point because the lines have intersected quite close to the beginning of the graph, but that's fine. It doesn't have to be exactly in the middle. So keeping this graph in mind and the scenario in mind, let's have a look at question 6. What is the point of intersection called? Anyone want to tell me? Oh, there they're coming. There we go. Break-even point. Good. Okay, so I'm just going to abbreviate it to BEP, which is also quite a common abbreviation. Also, in a test, if you wanted to, you can, if you have to label the break-even points, you can say BEP, like I have done on the graph now. Okay. Explain what is meant by this point of intersection in this context. So how can I relate it to Shelly and her bags? Okay, remember she makes bags. So how can we relate the break-even point to her situation? Any takers in the chat? Okay, so the break-even point, what does it mean for Shirley? Surely it means, well, if you're a business owner, you want to know how many bags you need to sell to cover your expenses or your product, how much you need to sell to cover all your expenses. Okay, so let's see when his or her income and the expenses were the same. Okay, so you can say that. So where, yeah, if we want to relate it more to her scenario, we can say the amount of bags, the number of bags she needs to sell to cover all her expenses. The number of bags to sell to cover all her costs. Okay, that's one of the first things you kind of think of when you're starting a business, like how much do I need to sell just so I can start making my profit? Okay, and then you obviously aim for that at least every month. Okay.